Welcome to Vacuum Wars, and to our review of the Roborock S8 Max Ultra and the S8 MaxV Ultra. These are the two new flagship robot vacuums from Roborock, which have minor differences from one another and are being sold at slightly different price points. We bought both of them and have been testing them in various ways over the past few weeks, and in this video I'll go over the pros and cons and go over the key differences between these two very similar products. So links in the description, and let's get started. First, the basics. The S8 Max Ultra and the S8 MaxV Ultra were released at the same time, and at first glance, it's hard to tell the difference between them. They're both top-tier robot vacuum mop combos with a fully loaded auto dock system and front-mounted obstacle avoidance systems. The most obvious difference between the two is all about the V in the name, which stands for vision, and the S8 MaxV has a camera in the front to help with its obstacle avoidance, where the S8 Max does its obstacle avoiding using only structured light. The camera also enables other features on the S8 MaxV, such as the ability to see stains that need to be given more attention in the mopping process, and more pet-related features which we'll talk about later. There's also a difference in their power. Roborock says that the S8 MaxV has a little more suction power than the S8 Max, and we were able to confirm this in our various bench tests. For example, we found that the S8 MaxV had a little more suction and airflow than the S8 Max, and the S8 MaxV did slightly better with practical performance tests, like the crevice pickup test and the carpet deep clean test. The S8 MaxV also has a new voice assistant feature where the S8 Max does not, as well as the new dirt detect feature, which is a dust sensor that boosts the suction power when it's vacuuming dirty areas. Starting off with the pros, the S8 Max and S8 MaxV were amazing with pickup on hard floors and carpets. I like the sweeping ability of Roborocks compared to other robots, and these two were no exception. They were able to pick up all the shapes and sizes of debris we tested nearly perfectly, including pet hair and human hair. They both have one side brush and dual brush rollers with a floating brush housing. One of the new hardware features that they introduced with the S8 Max series is the Flexi-Arm, which also comes on both models and is an automatically extending side brush that helps to clean corners. Roborock says that the new Flexi-Arm can help to achieve 100% coverage on corners, and it worked well in our tests. Another big pro is their mopping features and mopping ability. Roborock has introduced their Vibrorize 3.0 mopping system with the S8 Max series. The two modules on the microfiber pads vibrate faster than they did on the previous S8 Pro version, and both the S8 Max and S8 MaxV pads lift much higher than the previous version too, now at 20 millimeters compared to only 5 millimeters on the previous S8 Pro. So it's much less likely that the wet mop pad will touch carpets while raised up. This pad lifting feature unlocks the ability for the robot to vacuum and mop houses with a mixture of hard floors and carpets in just one run instead of two runs, so it makes them much more efficient than robot vacuums that do not have mop lifting. Another mopping hardware feature is this new spinning module on the side that ensures better edge coverage with mopping, as well as a place on the dock to wash that extra pad. Their actual mopping ability was excellent in our tests, and they both had no issues at all with the dried on coffee and dried on grape juice tests. They even did good with our glow-in-the-dark wet test, where they were able to deal with damp floors with minimal streaks. I couldn't tell a difference between the two in terms of their mopping ability, which makes sense because they have the exact same mopping systems. One of the biggest pros is the newly upgraded all-in-one docking station, which is basically the same on both versions. Not only does this dock automatically empty the robot's dustbin into a disposable bag, but it also washes the mop pad with hot water and dries the mop pad with hot air. It also fills the water tank. It has a new auto detergent dispenser where you can use any detergent of your choice, and to cap it all off, it now has a self-cleaning mode, which is something only offered on flagship models like these. One new feature on both docks is a dirt sensor in the dirty water tube, which detects if the mop water is still dirty, and if it is, it will initiate another washing of the mop pad. So we are getting close to Rosie the Robot levels of automation here. The only thing left to do is somehow automate the filling and emptying of these tanks, and Roborock has thought of that. There are actually versions of the S8 Max that need to be hooked up to specialized plumbing to drain and fill the tanks. Though they're not practical for most people, it's still pretty cool. Another pro is their obstacle avoidance systems. These are front-mounted sensors that detect household objects. These systems dramatically reduce the instances of the robot getting tangled in cords or getting stuck on something. As I mentioned, the S8 MaxV has a camera where the S8 Max does not, and in our obstacle avoidance tests, the S8 MaxV did do better than the S8 Max. But both of these did a lot better than the Roborock Q Revo MaxV, the next step down in the lineup. One possible reason that Roborock is offering the S8 Max version is for people who have security concerns and don't want their robots to have cameras. Both of their official battery life numbers are 180 minutes on low power, which is higher than average, and in our navigation tests, we found that the S8 Max had slightly better battery efficiency, but not by a whole lot. Speaking of navigation, they both make maps and navigate using LiDAR sensors, and they made a map of our floor plan in about 5 minutes and navigated in efficient rows with nearly perfect coverage and without getting stuck. They were both very similar in terms of navigation efficiency in our tests, and both numbers were about average for robots in this price range. The Roborock app is one of the best in the business. It's super easy to use. It's packed with every major feature from virtual barriers to multi-level mapping, advanced scheduling features, lots of control over bin behaviors, mopping and power settings, and more. The all-new pet-related features are interesting, though most of them are only available on the S8 MaxV because of the camera. For example, you can have the robot go automatically look for your pet if you're worried about them when you're not at home. You can also have it automatically take pictures of your pet while it's cleaning, and you can also video call with your pets through the speakers and microphone on the robot. Moving on to the cons. The main con for me is the price. The S8 MaxV is the most expensive robot vacuum I've ever reviewed, and I've reviewed a lot. The S8 Max was cheaper, but not by much. The other negative thing was the power drop with the S8 Max version. I feel like they artificially handicapped the S8 Max in terms of power in order to have a selling point for the S8 MaxV, and I don't think that was a good idea. Because while the S8 MaxV has respectable numbers with things like airflow and the deep clean test, the S8 Max with its power handicapped really falls below average with some of those important metrics, and it makes it hard to recommend that version even for security conscious people. But it's really hard to find something not to like about the Roborock S8 MaxV. Its feature score was the highest I've ever seen in our scoring system, and I think it's one of the best automated floor care systems on the market. We've updated our links in the description and our website to show that the S8 MaxV is currently holding the top spot, and the MaxV version is going to stay at my house as my personal robot vacuum until something better comes along. All of the links in our description section are updated regularly to reflect our current favorite vacuums in multiple categories. If you don't know where to start, check out our latest Vacuum Buyer's Guide video linked here. You'll also find links to the vacuumwars.com website in the description, where we post all the latest vacuum news, as well as much more detailed top 5 lists in multiple categories.